Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is all about quantitative reasoning section, and I'll explain various strategies that you guys can implement in order to tackle the issues. So firstly, what is quantitative reasoning section? This is a section which tests your ability to extract relevant data from a dataset and then use this in order to set up numerical calculations. Sounds simple, right? Apart from the fact that it's really time pressured, there's a lot of questions which can be quite difficult and the difficulty in using a calculator. And so in today's video, I'll explain various strategies you guys can implement in order to tackle these issues and to hopefully ace the QR section of the UCAT. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Shivank and I'm currently a Year 13 student and a medicine offer holder. And anyways, let's get on with the video. So the first tip is EEE. No, not electronics and electrical engineering if any of you were thinking that, but rather eyeball, estimate and eliminate. Now what might this mean? This is a strategy which I used a lot on many occasions, and I explain this best using an example. So let's say there are two groups, Group A and Group B. Group A has 756 people and Group B has 4 times the amount of that, and we obviously have to calculate how many are in Group B. Now, I know that we can do 76 times 4 in the calculator, but the whole point is that we want to save time in the exam, and so we can use this EEE method. So we first eyeball the number. We know what number we need, 76, and we know what we have to do times it by 4. So now we go on to the estimate part, so estimate. We can now round this number up to 760 or round down to 750 in order to make it easier for us to times by 4 using our mental math skills. So we can round down to 750 because that's quite easy. So 750 times 4 is 3000, or if you wanted to, you can double it and double again, so 1500 and then 3000. So now let's say there are 4 options, 2000, 2500, 3000 and 3024. And so this is where the eliminate option comes in. And yes, I've shown all of this in one example, but this question is quite easy. In a real exam, this will be part of the entire question. So let's say 76 times 4, the answer is actually 3024 because 6 times 4 is 24 and we can simply add that on. So going back to the 4 answer options, we had 2000, 2500, 3000 and 3024. Now the answer we got is 3000, and this is what we get by rounding down. And so we know our answer must be equal to or greater than 3000. So we can immediately eliminate option A and B, and we're left with option C and D. Now in this, it's quite obvious as 3024, but let's say if we had 3010, 3024, it wouldn't have been so obvious in that case, and so we can just guess between C and D. And this strategy really helps because it gives you a higher chance of guessing it and getting it right rather than just aimlessly guessing and having no chance of getting it. So this is why it's a really useful tip to help save time. So now moving on to the second tip, which is to know your equations, formulae, conversions, whatever, really well off by heart. And I cannot stress how important this is. This will save you a lot of time in the UCAT because you will avoid using a calculator, and the idea that your mental math skills will improve and be much faster. So on the screen right now, probably like a PowerPoint slide, you can see all the various equations that you need to know. I've also highlighted the ones which I think are of greatest importance and also come up regularly in the quantitative reasoning section. For example, percentage conversion is one which you really need to know. And so people ask me, okay, so how do I get to know these equations really well? I've seen them, how do I really memorize them? And the best way to do this is just by practice. By practicing quantitative reasoning sections again and again and again, we're forcing ourselves to use these equations or conversions regularly. And this prevents us using our calculator and enables us to save lots of time, and so in the real exam we'll be much more adaptable to use these equations again. So now moving on to tip number 3, looking at the question first and the dataset. But there's a caveat. When you go down and scroll to the question, you're indirectly skimming through. You perhaps might notice some key details such as column headings, labels and units. Don't just not notice them if you're obviously just scrolling down. Just take a look at them and then read the question as well. Because in the question, for example, if the question was about dollars versus pounds, and then the example before which you quickly skim read had pounds in it, you know that this section you don't need to know because you need to know about dollars, which is the second section, for instance. And so this really helps you save time. But don't go through reading the section. Reading and skimming are very different. Reading is when you go through the entire extract trying to find the key details in the question. This is what you do once you've read the question. So to summarize for this tip, since it's quite complicated, when you read a question, first just skim through the first extract. Just notice key column details, key details such as labels, headings, etc. and then read the question. Then the question will have some specific words and you can go back and properly search for these words, and therefore you'll be saving time. So now moving on to tip number 5. No wait, tip number 4. Now this is a really unusual tip, but I mentioned this throughout this, and this is the idea to minimize the use of a calculator. I cannot stress how important this is, because in an exam, if we use a calculator and we're not really used to it, then this would waste our time, and also the same thing we could have done by using our mental math skills. Also, we really need to be more confident in ourselves, because in an exam, and I also did this myself, I knew the answer, so I used my mental math skills and got the answer, but because I doubted myself, I used the calculator and then I got the same answer. Whereas I could have saved this time and answered another question which I had to just guess because I didn't have time, because since I wasted all this. And so I think really improve your mental math skills so you won't need to use the calculator. But if you do want to use the calculator because you're quite comfortable with it, make sure you know all the keyboard shortcuts, know that the calculator can store details as well, store numbers, so just know how to do all of this. And now tip number 5. So this is when you look at the option choices. So when, let's say the question was which of the following are correct, and there's 5 different numbers like 1000, 1200, etc. If, for instance, the numbers are very close to each other, for example 1000 and then the next one's 1010, next one 1011, you know that you have to be really precise in your calculations. And so you can't really guess, because let's say you get 1010 and there's 4 options, one's 1010, 1011, 12, etc. They're all very close to each other. And so by you guessing and rounding numbers, the EE method will not exactly work. However, if the answer options are really far apart, for example, one's 1000, one's 8000, you know that you can try using the EE method, and whichever one you're closer to is the correct option. Okay, so that's the tips done. That's longer than I expected for the QR section, but I think they are really important. So now let's move on to the worked examples. So guys, I'll now be doing the live session about answering UCAT questions based on the QR section. So there's no face cam for this so that it moves smoothly, and hopefully the audio quality is good since I'm recording on my phone. So let's do quantitative reasoning. Okay, so the website I've been using is MedicMind right now because they've got 1000 plus free UCAT questions. And anyways, let's get on with the practice test. So there's graph questions, percentage, tax questions, simple arithmetic. So I'll first start off with tax questions, since I think this is the ones students find the hardest, and this is one I've personally found the hardest as well. So start test. Okay, I'll click UCAT 1050 so I have more time to talk about the question. Right. Okay, so immediately without reading any of this, I've clearly skimmed over and I can see percentages here, and I've seen the pound symbol here and here. Now I'll read the question. So Roxanne, he has an annual taxable income of £23,330. The income tax to the nearest pound he has to pay is, and these 5 options. Now 23,230, so this falls into this category, so that means he has to pay 1,200 plus 15% times the difference of 20,330 minus 12,000. Now I clearly understood what this question was asking for, but if I had any doubt, they have an example over here as well, which I've just noticed. For example, 45,000 over here, so that means they have to pay 4,125 because this is the maximum value of the lower taxable income bracket, plus 20% of the difference of 45,000 minus the lower threshold, so 31,500. So in the case of 20,330, so this falls into this category. So let's round that up to 24,000. So 24,000, this is using the eyeball, estimate and eliminate option, because we've eyeballed 23,330 and we've seen it falls into this category, and now we're estimating it to be 24,000 by rounding up. This is so it becomes easier for us and saves time when calculating. So 24,000 minus 12,000 is 12,000. Now I have to calculate 15%. So what I could do is open the calculator and do 12,000 times 0.15, but instead I can do 30%, so 3/10 of 12,000, so that would be, so 1/10 of 12,000 is 1,200, so 3/10 would be 3,600, and now because it's 15% we can divide by 2, so it becomes 1,800. So the maximum amount of the value he has to pay for this threshold is 1,800 plus the 1,200 from this, so in total it becomes £3,000. Now immediately my answer's as closest to C, so I'll mark that right now. And we also know it can't be option D and E, since our value has to be lower than 3,000. This is because we took the higher value of this, so whatever value we get from this, so 1800, will always be higher than what it should be. So 1800 plus 1200, so 3000, so it has to be lower than 3000. So it must be C, B, or A. A and B are way too close to this value and far away from 3000, so therefore it must be answer C. Okay, so now moving on to question 2. Olenka has an annual taxable income of 114,000. The income tax she has to pay is, and these 5 options. So 114,000, this falls into this category. So this is 37%, and the maximum value she already has to pay of the previous tax bracket is 16,500. But she, I think, she has to pay less than 55,469. So therefore, we can eliminate immediately option E. Now another tip which I use is I first quickly have a look at the options. So in this case, the options are quite far apart. This is 3,000 away, this is 3,000, this is 7,000 away. So therefore I won't need to use exact values. If for example these are 1k away or half a k, I'd have to perhaps use exact values and be more precise, because otherwise the options would be too close. So 140,050, and this is 450 at the end. So let's just call this 140,450 for simplistic sake. So subtract this from this, it becomes 33,000. Yes, that's correct. Right? Yes. Okay, I just doubted myself. 33,000 anyways. Now 37% of that. So I'll just use a calculator quickly for this. So 33. So instead of typing 33,000, I often just type 33 because that's easier. 0.37. So roughly 12,000. So 12,000 at 16,500 is around 28.5k, which is closest to option B. So that's quite straightforward. Okay, now question 3. Max pays £10,000 per tax year. What is his taxable income to the nearest £10 before tax is deducted? So firstly, I've noticed by the options, these 3 options are very close to each other. So for example, if I use estimates and I get around 59,000, I'll be doubting myself, is it option C, E, or D, because they're all very close. So for this question, I'll use the exact values but be quick about it, and I'll show you how. So £10,000 per tax year. So that means he must pay above 8,800 and less than 16,500. So his value falls into this. So we already figured this out, and now we can eliminate option A straight away because it's underneath 54,950. Now £10,000 tax per year. So since he already pays 8,815 here, that means he must pay the difference over here. So £10,000 minus 8815. Now immediately I can tell that's 1,200 if I was to round this, but to be more precise, it would be 8815. This calculator is very faint, so I really can't see the values, but it's 1185. So 1185 is the value he has to pay. Now, the way we've been calculating is, so let's say the salary is 60,000. So we do 60,000 minus this, and then we times that by 0.29 to get the tax value he has to pay and add that to the previous one. So we worked out the tax value he has to pay for this threshold is 1,185. So let's say the difference of the value, whatever, so let's say his salary is X, so X minus 54950 times 0.29 equals that. So we have to work out what X is, and the way we do this is call this entire thing Y. So Y times 0.29 equals 1,185. So 1185 divided by 0.29 equals 4086. Wow, that is really faint. Okay, it's 4086. So if we add that on to that's roughly 55,000. So it'll be 4904, and I think that's quite close. So I know I've rounded up here, but I've only rounded to a difference of 50, so it won't make much difference. And also here, this is around a 1k difference, so it's not to worry about. So I'm quite confident the answer is D. Okay, so that's 3 questions for this section. So I can end this exam, close it, and okay, so we got the questions right, so that's good. So see here, yes, this was, we understood. So 12,000 gets taxed. Yep. So often the tip which I also find is that the first question usually in these questions is it's like a stepping stone. So If you understand the first question, then the second question is likely to be similar to it, as for instance it is here, it's just slightly harder, and the third question is developing further in your knowledge. And oftentimes, if for example question 1 you didn't get, but you got question 2 and 3, and when you go back to question 1, it makes more sense and you have better understanding of the data set and the question, and so you'll be able to better answer it. So whenever you have any doubt with the question and think it's going to be too long or too hard, simply flag the question and then move on. So this is tax questions done. If you want me to do more tax questions and show my method again, I'm more than happy to do so. Just mention down in the comments. And now graph questions. I think this will be the hardest, and simple arithmetic is sound simple enough. Okay, that was a really poor joke, but yes. Percentage proportion question, that is somewhat hard, but this usually comes up in graph questions, so we can have a look at this. Okay, again, this for more time, and as I was saying, these are some pie charts already here and some table. Okay, so question, which of the following statements is incorrect? Okay, so this is one of the questions where rather than reading the question and looking at the data set, there's loads of different options, so we have to look back each time. So this will be slightly more time consuming if you were to get this. So this part, I've skimmed it. I've just read best-selling, product, rare reviews, magazine, so it's something important, so I don't need to read it. Now here, I've seen sales of item, and I've seen some 2017-18, 2017-18, and here's 2018-19. So I've kept that in mind and know which table or chart to refer to. So which of the following statements is incorrect? Okay. Sales of item X were higher in shop A than shop B in quarter 1 of 2017-18. Okay, so 2018, sales of item X were higher in shop A than shop B in quarter. So this is item X. So this is quarter 1, and this is quarter 1 as well. So we don't know how many were sold. We don't know the number. So for example, it could be correct, it could be incorrect, so we don't know. So I'll leave option A, but I feel like that's the right answer. So the X were higher in shop A than shop B in quarter 1 of 2017-18. Yes, I think that's fine. Okay. B, quarter 3 of the highest sales of item X in shop A in 2018-19. Yep, seems right. 250 is created later. There was a 30% decrease in sales of item X in shop A between quarter 3 and quarter 4. So percentage difference is final minus initial over initial. That's the one I like to use personally. So final minus initial, so 175 minus 250 is minus 75 divided by 250. Now I can use a calculator, but I'll try doing mentally. I think I can, and that'll save some time. So we divide by 5, the 250 divided by 5 is 50, so the denominator will be 50, and the numerator, so 75 divided by 5 is 15. So 15 over 50 is the same as 30% decrease. So that's also correct. So B and C are correct. D, a high percentage of annual sales for item X occurred in quarter 4 for shop A than shop B. So quarter 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So higher percentage means basically a proportion. So this proportion is clearly greater than this. So option D is also correct. And E, there is insufficient information to draw any of these conclusions. So, okay, so this one, A and E both seem very counterintuitive, because A, it could be correct, it could also be incorrect, and E, there is insufficient information to draw any other conclusion, which doesn't really make sense to me, because if that was to be correct, then B and C would be wrong, so that can't be right, so therefore it must be incorrect, because there is sufficient information to draw these conclusions. I'm going to go with E, but I'm slightly conflicted between A and E. I'll have a look at the explanations afterwards, and hopefully that will help. So even for me, even having done the UCAT, it's still some questions can still trip me up, and so it's important to learn from the mistakes and then move on. So question 2, in 2018-19, shop B had sales of item X 33% higher than shop A in quarter 1, 30% in 2, 32% in 3, 44% in 4. Which shop sold more of item X over the year and by how many? Okay, so this is quite a lengthy question. The numbers seem alright until it reaches 44%. So let's have a go. So 33%, Now, a tip which I use, rather than using decimals, because decimals can be quite difficult because you have to use a calculator most of the times unless it's obvious, then you can just try using fractions. So 33% is the same as 1/3. So a 1/3 of 75 is very obvious, which is 25. Add 25 to 75 is 100. So therefore, in quarter one in shop A, they had 100. And this can be another way of using decimals is 75 times 1.33 is the same as 100. Now, quarter two, it's lower. So 30% of 100 is 30. So 100 minus 30 is 70. So therefore, in quarter two, it is 70. So I'll quickly add 100. So this part of the audio unfortunately got corrupted, so I'll quickly voice over this section. So from the first two quarters, we got 100 plus 70, so it totals up to 170, and now the third quarter. So third quarter says 30% higher in quarter three. So 30% is again roughly 1/3, and so we do 1/3 of 250, which is again annoying number. So let's say 1/3 of 240 to make it easier, which is around roughly 80. So we can add 80 to our total to 250, which adds up to 330, and then adding this to 170 leads us to 500. We're 44% lower in quarter four. Now 44%, I can use 50% and then get 87.5, but this would be a rough estimate and I could be quite incorrect because here the difference is very small. So one here, so I want to be more precise. So 44%. So I've got 500 already, so I'll keep that in mind. So now 175 times 0.44 is 77. So 175 minus 77 is 98. So we had 500, so now we have 598. So 598 is the total for shop B. Shop A, 175, add that to that. 175 add 175 is 350. 350 add 250 is 600. So 600 versus 598. So therefore shop A has more. So the question asks for more, which shop sold more. So shop A by 2. Okay, so question 3. There's a pie chart. I quite like these questions because these visual questions seem to be quite easier compared to the other ones. So let's have a look. Reading with quarter 1 to quarter 4 going clockwise, which of the following show the correct pie charts for sales of item X in shop A in 2018 to 19? So here, so clockwise, so quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. So firstly, quarter 3 has to have the biggest share and nearly a half, but not exactly half. So quarter 3 biggest share here, so it looks like A right now. Here 1, 2, 3, that's incorrect. It looks like quarter 4. Here 1, 2, 3. Now it could be C, but because in C it's exactly half. But we calculated before the total is 600, and a half of 600 is 300. So things you learn from previous questions you could keep in the back of your mind because it could be useful for the series of questions. So if it was exactly half, it would be 300. In this case it's 250, so it can't be C either. It can't be it can't be D because 1, 2, 3 against a small proportion, and then 1, 2, 3, these are all 3 equal, so it can't be. So just double check. 75, you have smallest, then 100, then 250, so 175, therefore it is A. Alright, let's end the exam. Okay, so question 1, 2, and 3. So question 1 I got incorrect. Okay, fine. Answer A. Okay, fine. So without information on the total number of sales, we cannot compare the pie charts. Thus, the claim that the sales were higher in shop A than B cannot be supported, as we know the sales were a higher proportion of the whole year in shop A rather than a higher number of units sold. Okay, fine, that makes sense. The idea in A is a higher proportion. However, I'm still quite doubtful about E, the information to draw any conclusion, because so if it's not this, that means it is correct. But there wasn't enough information to draw question B and C. So is it A or E? Also, the likes and dislike ratio is quite staggering. Okay, so I think when you do these practice questions, bear in mind for such questions because there could be disputes. Okay, here clearly perfect. There is C. This person says the correct answer is E. So we'll just ignore that question for now. Yep, it was straightforward. So we had to use these 3 steps quickly. 0.7, 250. So they use decimals. Okay, fine. I guess I personally don't have that much time. I wouldn't have that much time in the exam. So 1/3 of 240 is roughly 80. 80 add 50. So if you notice what I've done, I've taken the higher value of 32%, so I've taken 33%, which is 1/3. So to compensate by taking a higher value, I've taken a lower value of 250, so rounded down to 240. So therefore the value I've got 80 was actually precisely on the target, but it should, either way, it would be very close to the actual value. And here I used the same value. Now I did take a longer step, so I did 175 times 0.44 to get 77, and then subtracted it, but obviously doing 0.56 would have been much easier due to the percentage difference rule. And so the total 598, and therefore option A has more by 2. Here, yep, it was obviously A because we read quarter 4. Yeah, so 250 has to be the biggest, it has to be A or C, and we know it's not half, so it's not C, therefore A is the correct answer. So that all makes sense. So hopefully this really helped you guys, and if you have any further questions, please let me know in the comment section below. So my next video that will be coming up will hopefully be UCAT verbal reasoning, and if you have any other videos that you want me to do, please let me know. And if you really enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can experience more medicine application videos such as UCAT and the BMAT, and also leave a like if you're interested. Anyways, thanks for watching.